Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every woman's life when explaining becomes exhausting, when proving drains your spirit, when defending your worth begins to feel like betrayal of your own soul. That is not weakness speaking. That is wisdom rising. Silence in that season is not surrender. Silence is strategy. Some people only recognize value after it has left the room. They only understand the weight of what they lost when the door no longer opens for them. While you were present, they were comfortable. While you were giving, they were careless. While you were patient, they were passive. But when you stop speaking, stop chasing, stop correcting, stop begging, reality begins to preach. You see, noise allows people to avoid responsibility, but silence removes distractions. When you are no longer explaining yourself, they are left with their actions. When you stop reminding them of your worth, they are left with the consequences of undervaluing you. Every battle deserves your voice. Not every offense deserves your energy. Some people are not meant to hear your explanation. They are meant to feel your absence. Let them wake up to the space you once filled with love, loyalty, prayer, effort, consistency, and grace. Let them notice how peace left with you. Let them realize how rare your patience was. Let them sit with the silence where your encouragement used to be. Silence is where healing happens. Silence is where clarity is restored. Silence is where you remember who you were before you started shrinking to be understood. In silence, you realign with your purpose, not their approval. In silence, you rebuild your identity, not their comfort. Because when you finally choose peace over performance, alignment over attachment, dignity over desperation, regret becomes inevitable. Not because you announce your departure, but because your growth will expose what they failed to value. Silence has been misunderstood for generations. It has been mistaken for fear, confused with submission, labeled as weakness by those who only recognize power when it shouts. But true wisdom rarely announces itself loudly. True strategy does not waste energy on unnecessary noise. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is not the absence of strength. It is the discipline of strength. There is a difference between being silenced and choosing silence. One is imposed, the other is claimed. When a woman chooses silence, she is not retreating, she is repositioning. She is stepping back not to disappear, but to see clearly. In silence, the fog lifts, emotions settle, motives reveal themselves. The truth, which often hides behind constant conversation, finally has room to breathe. Silence becomes wisdom when a woman understands that not every thought needs to be spoken, not every emotion needs to be shared, and not every injustice needs an immediate response. Some moments demand restraint, not reaction. Some battles are won by refusing to engage. When she stops responding to every provocation, she deprives chaos of its fuel. When she stops explaining herself to people committed to misunderstanding her, she regains her peace. Wisdom recognizes that words are powerful, and power must be used selectively. Speaking without discernment leaks energy. Explaining weakens authority. Repeating yourself to those who do not respect you slowly erodes your self-worth. Silence, on the other hand, protects your inner world. It creates a boundary where your dignity remains untouched. Strategy lives in timing. Wise woman knows when to speak and when to remain quiet. She understands that premature words can sabotage progress. She knows that revealing plans too early invites interference. She knows that some people listen not to understand, but to respond, criticize, or control. Silence becomes her shield. It allows her to move in alignment rather than in reaction. There is a reason powerful transformations often happen quietly. Growth is fragile in its early stages. Just like a seed must remain hidden beneath the soil before it breaks the surface, a woman's evolution requires silence before visibility. Announcing every intention exposes it to doubt, sabotage, and unnecessary opinions. Silence guards the process. It allows change to mature without pressure. Silence is also a test, both for her and for others. For her, it tests patience, emotional regulation, and self-trust. Can she resist the urge to prove herself? Can she sit with being misunderstood without correcting the narrative? Can she allow truth to reveal itself over time rather than forcing it through explanation? These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of emotional mastery. For others, her silence becomes a mirror. Without her constant presence, reassurance, or clarification, people are forced to face their own behavior. They begin to notice the absence of her support, her consistency, her empathy. Silence exposes who valued her voice and who merely benefited from her effort. It separates genuine connection from convenience. In relationships, silence can be the loudest message. Not the silence of punishment or manipulation, the silence of self-respect. When a woman stops arguing, stops pleading, stops reminding someone of her worth, she is not giving up. She is stepping into alignment. She understands that love does not require constant negotiation of dignity. Respect should not need repeated reminders. Silence teaches others how to treat you. When you no longer tolerate disrespect through endless explanation, you redefine the standard. When you stop engaging with behavior that drains you, you reclaim authority over your emotional space. People either rise to meet that standard or fall away. Either outcome is clarity. There is power in knowing that you do not need the last word. Needing the last word often comes from insecurity, not strength. True confidence rests in knowing that time will reveal what arguments cannot. Silence trusts the process. It trusts that truth does not need to be defended aggressively. It will stand on its own. Strategic silence is also about conserving energy. Every conversation, every argument, every explanation costs something. A wise woman learns to invest her energy where it multiplies, not where it evaporates. She stops pouring into situations that produce no growth. Silence becomes an act of self-preservation. In moments of conflict, silence allows emotions to settle so decisions can be made from clarity rather than impulse. Reacting instantly may feel satisfying, but it often creates consequences that linger longer than the moment. Silence creates space. In that space, wisdom speaks. Silence also deepens intuition. When external noise fades, inner guidance becomes louder. A woman in silence hears herself again. Her boundaries, her values, truth. She stops outsourcing validation and begins trusting her discernment. This is where strategy sharpens. Decisions become intentional rather than emotional. Choosing silence does not mean tolerating harm or injustice. It means responding from strength rather than chaos. It means knowing that not every situation deserves immediate access to your voice. Some require distance. Some require boundaries. Some require you to walk away quietly and let consequences speak. A woman who understands silence is dangerous in the best way. She cannot be easily manipulated because she does not react impulsively. She cannot be easily controlled because she does not explain herself endlessly. She cannot be easily shaken because her power is internal. Silence refines presence. When she finally speaks, her words carry weight because they are rare, intentional, and grounded. People listen differently when they know you do not speak just to fill space. Silence teaches authority. In a world addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. It is a declaration that your peace matters more than being heard by everyone. It is the confidence to know that you do not need to announce your growth, your healing, or your departure. Your life will speak for you. Silence is wisdom because it sees beyond the moment. Silence is strategy because it moves with intention. And when a woman masters silence, she does not become invisible. She becomes unshakable. There comes a moment of awakening in a woman's life when she realizes that clarity is not the same as connection. Explanation is not the same as being understood. You can speak with honesty, patience, and sincerity and still be met with resistance. Not because your words lack meaning, but because the listener lacks willingness. At that point, wisdom begins to whisper a liberating truth. You do not owe explanations to those who refuse understanding. Understanding is not created by repetition. It is created by openness. Some people are not confused by your choices. They are threatened by them. Some are not misunderstanding your boundaries. They are resisting the loss of control. When someone is committed to misinterpreting you, no amount of explanation will bring peace, only exhaustion. Explaining yourself repeatedly to the unwilling is not communication, it is self-abandonment. There is a subtle danger in over-explaining. Each explanation you offer to someone who has already decided not to understand, you teaches them that your boundaries are negotiable. teaches them that your no can be debated, softened, or worn down. Over time, this habit erodes your confidence. You begin to question yourself not because you are wrong, but because you are constantly defending what never needed justification in the first place. You are not placed on this earth to be on trial for your growth. Your healing does not require a committee's approval. Your decisions do not need to make sense to those who benefit from you staying the same. When you continue explaining yourself to people who refuse understanding, you hand them power over your narrative. You allow their confusion, real or manufactured, to dictate your peace. Refusal to understand is often strategic. Some people ask questions not to learn, but to delay, challenge, or destabilize you. They request explanations as a way to keep you emotionally engaged, to keep you doubting, to keep you circling the same ground while they avoid accountability. In those moments, silence becomes an act of self-respect. A woman who knows when to stop explaining is a woman who has learned discernment. She can tell the difference between curiosity and resistance, between concern and control, between misunderstanding and manipulation. She recognizes when a conversation is no longer about clarity but about dominance. That point, disengaging is not rude, it is necessary. There is also grief in releasing the need to be understood. We often want understanding from people we love, from people we have invested in, from people whose approval once mattered deeply. Letting go of that desire can feel like loss, but holding on to it too long costs more than it gives. Peace requires acceptance of a hard truth. Some people will never understand you, not because you failed to explain, but because understanding you would require them to change. You do not owe explanations for evolving beyond environments that no longer fit. You do not owe explanations for choosing peace over chaos. You do not owe explanations for honoring boundaries that protect your mental and emotional health. Your growth is not an attack on others, even if they experience it that way. When you stop explaining yourself to the unwilling, something powerful happens. You reclaim energy. You redirect focus from defending your past to building your future. You begin to move with quiet confidence instead of nervous justification. Your actions start speaking louder than your words ever did. Explanations are invitations. When someone repeatedly refuses to understand, they are declining the invitation. Continuing to explain after that point is like knocking on a door that will never open. Wisdom teaches you when to walk away. This does not mean you become cold or dismissive. It means you become selective. You choose conversations that lead to growth, not cycles. You invest your voice where it is valued, not tolerated. You share your heart with those who handle it gently, not with those who dissect it for their own agendas. A woman who stops over-explaining learns to trust herself. She no longer needs external validation to confirm internal truth. She understands that alignment feels peaceful even when it is misunderstood. She realizes that being misunderstood by the wrong people is not failure. It is confirmation that she has outgrown the space. Silence, in this context, not avoidance. It is closure. It is the recognition that some conversations have run their course. Every relationship deserves continued access to your reasoning. Not every question deserves an answer. Some deserve distance. People who genuinely want to understand will show it through humility, listening, and change. They will not require you to bleed explanations just to be treated with basic respect. They will not punish you for setting boundaries or choosing differently. They will meet you halfway. Let others sit with their confusion. It is not your responsibility to rescue them from it. You are not obligated to carry the emotional labor of those who refuse to meet you in understanding. You are allowed to move forward without consensus. When you release the need to be understood by everyone, you gain the freedom to be fully yourself. You stop shrinking your truth to fit someone else's comfort. You stop diluting your voice to avoid conflict. You stand rooted in clarity even when misunderstood. And in that place, something profound happens. The right people understand you without effort. The wrong people fall away without explanation. And peace, real peace, finally takes its place where endless justification once lived. There are lessons that language is too small to carry. There are truths that cannot be argued into existence, realities that refuse to be explained no matter how carefully the words are chosen. In those moments, absence becomes the teacher. Absence often teaches lessons words never could because it removes distraction and leaves only consequence, reflection, and truth. Words can be debated, they can be twisted, minimized, ignored, or dismissed. Words invite negotiation, defense, and denial, but absence is undeniable. It does not argue, it does not explain, it simply is. And in its stillness, it forces awareness. When someone is no longer present, the space they occupied becomes visible. What they contributed, what they carried, what they protected, and what they endured suddenly comes into focus. Many people do not recognize value while they are benefiting from it. Familiarity dulls gratitude. Consistency becomes expected. Sacrifice becomes invisible. As long as someone is present, giving, forgiving, supporting, and adjusting, the effort blends into the background of everyday life. But when they leave, the silence they leave behind speaks with clarity that words never achieved. Absence disrupts comfort. It removes the safety net people didn't realize they were standing on. It exposes dependencies that were taken for granted. When a woman withdraws her presence, energy, her labor, her emotional availability, those left behind begin to feel what they failed to appreciate. Not because she explained it, because they are now living without it. There is a reason absence often follows exhaustion. It is not the first choice. It is the last resort. Most women do not leave at the first misunderstanding. They speak, they clarify, they compromise, they give chances, they explain themselves repeatedly, hoping understanding will arrive. Absence comes only after words have been spent, patience has been drained, and respect has been neglected. When she finally chooses distance, it is not revenge, it is self-preservation, and in that distance, lessons begin. People start replaying conversations they once ignored. They remember warnings they dismissed. They recognize boundaries they crossed too easily. Absence turns memory into accountability. Absence also removes illusion. While someone is present, others can convince themselves that everything is fine, that the relationship is stable, that the effort will always be there. Absence shatters that illusion. It reveals what was holding things together. It exposes imbalance. It shows who was carrying more weight than they should have. Some lessons cannot be taught gently. Some require loss. Not loss as punishment, but loss as revelation. When someone no longer has access to your time, your care, your listening ear, or your emotional labor, they learn the cost of taking you for granted. Absence introduces consequences without cruelty. There is power in leaving quietly. No speeches, no ultimatums, no dramatic exits, just distance, just silence. That kind of absence is unsettling because it cannot be argued with. It does not offer closure through explanation. It forces introspection. People are left with their thoughts, their behavior, and their choices. Absence also teaches self-worth to the one who leaves. It reinforces the truth that you are not required to stay where you are undervalued. You are not obligated to keep proving your importance. You are allowed to remove yourself from environments that drain you. Walking away teaches you that peace is not something you ask for, it is something you choose. When words fail to create change, absence creates awareness. When conversations go in circles, distance draws a line. When presence is abused, absence restores balance. This is not emotional manipulation, it is emotional maturity. It is the understanding that not everyone deserves unlimited access to you. Absence shifts dynamics, it changes power structures. Those who once felt entitled to your presence must now sit with its absence. Those who ignored your needs must now confront their impact. Those who assumed you would always stay must now accept that you didn't. And sometimes absence teaches you who people really are. Some will reflect, grow, reach for accountability. Others will grow bitter, defensive, or dismissive. Both responses offer clarity. Absence reveals whether someone valued you or merely used you. There is also healing in absence. Being away from constant misunderstanding, disrespect, emotional strain allows the nervous system to settle. It allows clarity to return. It allows identity to be reclaimed. In absence, you remember who you were before you started shrinking to maintain connection. Absence gives space for transformation, not just for others, but for yourself. You stop reacting and start realigning. You stop explaining and start becoming. You stop carrying what was never yours to fix. It is important to understand that absence is not about making someone miss you. It is about choosing yourself. If regret follows, it is not your responsibility. Realization comes late, it is not your burden. Absence does not exist to teach others at the expense of your peace. It exists to protect your well-being. Some people only learn through experience. Some only understand value through loss. Words may fail them, but absence will not. It stands as a living reminder of what was once available and is no longer accessible. In the end, absence is not emptiness, it is a message. It says, I mattered. It says, I gave. It says, I deserve better. And long after words are forgotten, absence remains, teaching its lesson quietly, thoroughly, and without apology. Silence has a way of removing all escape routes. When words stop, when explanations end, when reactions no longer arrive on schedule, people are left alone with themselves. Silence forces people to confront their own actions because it strips away distraction and exposes reality without commentary. There is no argument to win, no defense to attack, no voice to blame. There is only reflection. Many people rely on noise to avoid accountability. Conversations, debates, justifications, emotional exchanges give them something to push against. As long as someone is responding, they can deflect, deny, minimize, or shift responsibility. Silence collapses those strategies. Without opposition, there is nowhere for excuses to land. When a woman chooses silence, she is not withholding communication out of spite. She is stepping out of a cycle that has protected others from seeing themselves clearly. Her quiet is not passive. It is revealing. It forces the focus to move away from her reactions and onto their behavior. Silence disrupts patterns. Someone is used to provoking responses, manipulating emotions, or relying on constant reassurance. The sudden absence of engagement creates discomfort. That discomfort is not caused by silence itself, but by unresolved truth rising to the surface. Without her words to soften reality, actions speak for themselves. In the absence of response, memory becomes louder. People begin replaying moments they once dismissed. They remember tones they used, boundaries they crossed, promises they broke. Silence gives the mind space to connect dots it previously ignored. What once felt insignificant now carries weight. Silence also removes the illusion of misunderstanding. When there is no one left explaining, justifying, or clarifying, people can no longer hide behind confusion. They are forced to acknowledge that they heard, they knew, and they chose anyway. Silence exposes intention. There is something unsettling about not being corrected, not being chased, not being confronted. It signals finality without aggression. It suggests that the issue was serious enough to warrant withdrawal, not argument. That realization often arrives slowly but deeply. Silence places responsibility exactly where it belongs. Instead of focusing on how you reacted, people must now examine what they did. Instead of critiquing your tone, they must confront their choices. This shift is uncomfortable because self-examination requires honesty. Honesty requires courage. For the one who chooses silence, it is an act of restraint and dignity. It is the refusal to continue participating in emotional labor that benefits others at her expense. She understands that repeating herself will not produce accountability, and raising her voice will not create empathy. Silence becomes her boundary. People often say they want honesty, but what they really want is reassurance without consequence. Silence removes reassurance. It does not comfort poor behavior. It does not smooth over harm. It allows discomfort to do its work. Silence also reveals who is capable of reflection and who is not. Some will respond by looking inward, taking responsibility, and seeking growth. Others will respond with blame, anger, or dismissal. Both reactions provide clarity. Silence becomes a filter, separating maturity from immaturity. In relationships, silence often marks the moment when tolerance ends, not because the issue was small, but because it was repeated. Silence is rarely the first response. It is the response after words have failed. It is the language of someone who has already tried everything else. Silence forces people to sit with the consequences of their behavior. They feel the absence of connection, the distance created by their choices. They recognize that access was lost not because of one mistake, but because of a pattern. This realization cannot be rushed or argued into existence. It must be felt. There is strength in allowing others to wrestle with their own conscience. You do not need to narrate their mistakes for them. You do not need to remind them of what they did. Silence trusts that awareness will rise when the noise stops. For the woman who chooses silence, it is also a form of self-respect. She refuses to beg for accountability. She refuses to negotiate her worth. She understands that if someone truly values her, silence will not push them away. It will draw reflection closer. Silence creates a pause where growth can happen. In that pause, people decide who they are. They either lean into responsibility or retreat into defensiveness. Either way truth is revealed, it is important to understand that silence is not about punishment, it is about alignment. It is choosing not to engage in spaces that require you to shrink, justify, or absorb harm. It is trusting that what needs to be understood will be understood without your constant involvement. In a world addicted to immediate responses, silence feels radical, but is often the most honest response available. It says, without words, I have seen enough. It says, this matters. It says, I will no longer carry what is not mine. Protecting your peace is not selfish, dramatic, or dismissive. It is not avoidance, and it is not weakness. Protecting your peace is an act of self-respect. One of the most honest ways you honor your worth in a world that constantly asks you to overextend, over-explain, and overgive. It is the quiet declaration that your well-being matters even when others would benefit from you ignoring it. Peace is not the absence of responsibility, it is the presence of alignment. When your inner world is calm, your decisions become clearer, your boundaries stronger, and your sense of self more stable. Chaos thrives where peace is neglected. Confusion multiplies when emotional noise is allowed to run unchecked. Choosing peace is choosing clarity over constant reaction. Many people are taught, especially women, that endurance is a virtue, that tolerating discomfort is strength. Keeping the peace means sacrificing oneself. Over time, this conditioning teaches you to normalize stress, excuse disrespect, minimize your own needs. Protecting your peace requires unlearning these narratives. It requires recognizing that constantly being unsettled is not a badge of honor, it is a warning sign. Self-respect begins with awareness. You notice what drains you. You observe what unsettles your spirit. You pay attention to environments, conversations, and relationships that leave you exhausted rather than nourished. Peace does not mean life is free of challenges, but it does mean you no longer volunteer for unnecessary turmoil. Protecting your peace often requires saying no without apology. It means declining invitations that come with emotional costs. It means stepping back from conversations that lead nowhere. It means refusing to engage in cycles of drama, manipulation, or disrespect. Each time you choose calm over chaos, you reinforce the message that your inner world is not open for misuse. Peace is fragile when it is new. After long seasons of stress or emotional survival can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Protecting it requires intention. It means recognizing when old patterns try to pull you back into noise, over-explaining, people-pleasing, rescuing, or fixing what is not yours to fix. Peace grows when you stop negotiating your boundaries. Self-respect shows up in the decisions no one applauds, walking away quietly, choosing rest over reaction, letting go of arguments you could win but do not need. Protecting your peace means understanding that being right is not always worth being disturbed. Some victories cost too much. There will be moments when protecting your peace is misunderstood. People accustomed to your availability may label your boundaries as distance. Those who benefited from your emotional labor may accuse you of changing. Self-respect does not require consensus. It requires alignment. You are not obligated to remain accessible to everyone at the expense of yourself. Peace is not passive. It is actively maintained. It requires discernment about where you invest your time, energy, and emotions. It requires recognizing that attention is currency, and not everyone deserves access to it. Protecting your peace means spending that currency wisely. When you honor your peace, you teach others how to treat you. You set a standard through consistency, not explanation. Over time, people learn that access to you comes with respect, and disrespect comes with distance. This is not punishment, it is natural consequence. Protecting your peace also means releasing guilt. Guilt often shows up when you stop meeting expectations that were never fair to begin with. It whispers that you are doing something wrong when you prioritize yourself. Self-respect answers back with truth. Caring for your well-being is not betrayal, it is responsibility. Peace allows healing. In calm spaces, the nervous system resets, the mind clears, the heart softens. When you are no longer constantly bracing for conflict, you can process, reflect, and grow. Protecting your peace gives you room to become who you are without survival mode shaping every decision. Peace also sharpens intuition. When noise fades, inner guidance becomes clearer. You recognize red flags sooner. You trust your instincts more deeply. Protecting your peace makes you less reactive and more intentional. You respond rather than react. There is strength in choosing disengagement. Not every issue needs resolution through confrontation. Some are resolved through distance. Protecting your peace means understanding that closure does not always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from acceptance. Self-respect is reflected in how you treat yourself when no one is watching. Do you rest when you are tired, or do you push until burnout? Do you honor your limits, or do you override them for approval? Protecting your peace answers these questions through action. Over time, peace becomes a standard rather than a luxury. You stop romanticizing struggle. You stop confusing intensity with love. You stop mistaking chaos for passion. Protecting your peace reshapes your relationships, your priorities, and your identity. In a world that rewards constant availability, choosing peace is radical. It is choosing to live from wholeness rather than depletion. It is choosing to value your inner stability more than external validation. Protecting your peace does not mean withdrawing from life. It means engaging with life from a place of strength. When you respect your peace, you show the world how to respect you. And in that choice, you reclaim the authority to live with dignity, clarity, and quiet power. There is a truth that marks the moment a woman steps fully into self-awareness. Not everyone deserves continued access to you. This realization is not born from bitterness, pride, or a desire to punish. It is born from clarity, from experience, from understanding that access is not an entitlement, it is a privilege, and privileges must be maintained with respect. Access means more than proximity. It means influence. It means the ability to affect your thoughts, your emotions, your peace, and your direction. When you allow someone continued access to your life, you are allowing them into your inner world. That kind of permission should never be given casually or indefinitely, especially when it is repeatedly mishandled. Many women are taught to confuse loyalty with endurance. They are encouraged to stay, explain, forgive, and accommodate long past the point of health. Over time, this conditioning makes it feel wrong to create distance, even when that distance is necessary. But wisdom teaches that loyalty without discernment becomes self-neglect. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some people are seasonal, some are situational, and some are lessons rather than lifelong connections. Continued access should be based on behavior, not history. Time spent together does not guarantee future permission. Familiarity does not override respect. When someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, minimizes your feelings, or drains your energy, continued access becomes a liability. Each interaction costs you something. Peace, confidence, clarity. Choosing distance is not cruelty, it is conservation. There is a difference between being compassionate and being available without limits. Compassion understands human imperfection. Boundaries recognize patterns. When mistakes become habits and apologies lack change, access must be reevaluated. Wisdom knows when grace has done its work and when it is time to step back. Removing access does not require drama or announcement. It often happens quietly. Less explanation, less engagement, less emotional investment. This subtle shift is powerful because it is rooted in self-respect rather than reaction. You are not trying to prove a point, you are protecting your life. Not everyone will understand your boundaries, especially those who benefited from you having none. They may call you distant, changed, or selfish. But those labels often come from discomfort, not truth. You are not required to remain accessible to preserve someone else's comfort. Continued access should be earned through consistency, accountability, mutual respect. Those who value you will notice when they have crossed a line. They will adjust. They will take responsibility. Those who do not will resist, deflect, or attempt to guilt you back into old patterns. Their response reveals everything you need to know. Access to you also includes emotional access. Who gets to hear your fears? Who gets to influence your decisions? Who gets to witness your vulnerability? These are sacred spaces. Everyone is qualified to occupy them. Oversharing with the wrong people turns intimacy into exposure. As you grow, your standards will change. What you once tolerated may no longer feel acceptable. This does not make you difficult. It means you are evolving. Continued access must evolve as well. Some people will grow with you. Others will not. Both outcomes are natural. Letting go of continued access can be painful, especially when attachment is involved. Staying connected to what harms you is far more costly. Distance creates clarity. It allows you to see relationships without emotional fog. It reveals who respects you without constant availability. There is strength in choosing who remains close. Selectivity is not arrogance, it is awareness. Your time, energy, and presence are finite resources. Investing them wisely is an act of maturity. Not everyone who wants access deserves it. Closeness does not guarantee readiness. Desire does not equal responsibility. Continued access requires emotional safety, not just emotional need. You are allowed to outgrow people. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to protect what you have worked hard to heal. Distance is not rejection, it is redirection. When you remove access, you also create space. Space for healthier connections, space for peace, space for yourself. You stop managing other people's reactions and start honoring your own needs. Not everyone will stay, and they don't have to. Right people will respect your boundaries without resentment. They will value access without abusing it. They will understand that closeness is not guaranteed, it is nurtured. In choosing who gets continued access to you, you are choosing the quality of your life. You are deciding what energy surrounds you, what voices influence you, and what standards define your relationships. There are seasons in life that arrive without applause, without affirmation, and without explanation. They are not loud, visible, or celebrated. They are quiet. And yet it is in these quiet seasons that the deepest healing takes place and the clearest understanding is formed. Healing and clarity are born in quiet seasons because silence creates the space where truth can finally surface. Noise keeps wounds hidden. Constant activity, conversation, and distraction allow pain to be postponed rather than processed. When life is loud, emotions are often managed instead of healed. Quiet, however, removes the escape routes. It invites you to sit with what you feel, to acknowledge what hurt, and to face what you have been avoiding. This is not comfortable work, but it is necessary. Quiet seasons often follow exhaustion. They come after you have given too much, explained too long, endured more than you should have. When your spirit grows tired of surviving, it asks for stillness. This stillness is not emptiness, it is restoration in progress. In quiet, the nervous system begins to settle. Without constant stimulation, your body learns again what safety feels like. Breathing deepens, thoughts slow, emotional reactions soften. Healing starts here, not through force, but through gentleness. The absence of pressure allows wounds to breathe. Quiet seasons strip away performance. There is no audience to impress, no role to maintain, no expectations to meet. Without external validation, you begin to hear your own voice again. You reconnect with your values, your desires, your truth. Clarity emerges when you stop adjusting yourself to be understood. In silence, patterns become visible. You start noticing what drains you, nourishes you, and what no longer aligns. You recognize cycles you once repeated unconsciously. Clarity does not shout. It reveals itself slowly through observation and reflection. Healing requires honesty, and honesty requires privacy. Quiet seasons provide the safety to be real with yourself. You can admit disappointment without judgment. You can grieve what did not happen. You can release guilt, resentment, and unspoken pain. This inner work cannot be rushed or performed publicly. Quiet also recalibrates boundaries. When you are no longer surrounded by noise, you become more sensitive to what disrupts your peace. You learn what you will no longer tolerate. Clarity sharpens discernment. You stop questioning instincts you once ignored. There is discomfort in quiet seasons. Without distraction, unresolved emotions rise. Loneliness may surface. Doubt may whisper. But these are not signs of regression. They are signs of awareness. Healing often feels worse before it feels better. Because suppressed pain is finally being acknowledged. Quiet seasons teach patience. Growth slows, but it deepens. You stop chasing quick fixes and start choosing lasting change. Healing becomes about alignment rather than approval. Clarity gained in quiet is stable. It is not influenced by opinions or trends. It is rooted in self-trust. You begin to make decisions with confidence, not urgency. You no longer feel the need to explain every choice because you understand it yourself. In quiet, forgiveness becomes possible, not always reconciliation. Release. You let go of what no longer deserves space in your heart. Healing does not mean forgetting. It means no longer carrying the weight of the past into the present. Quiet seasons often feel unproductive by external standards, but internally, they are transformational. While nothing appears to be happening, everything is changing. You are shedding old identities, outdated beliefs, unhealthy attachments. When clarity arrives, it is gentle but firm. You know what you want. You know what you need. You know what you will walk away from. Quiet seasons remove confusion because they remove noise. Eventually, you emerge, not louder but steadier, not rushed but rooted. Healing has strengthened you. Clarity has guided you. You move forward with intention rather than reaction. Quiet seasons do not last forever, but their impact does. They prepare you for what comes next. They teach you to value peace, trust yourself, and honor your inner world. Healing and clarity are not born in chaos. They are born in stillness. And those who allow themselves the grace of quiet return not weaker, but whole. There is a kind of strength that does not shout, threaten, or seek validation. It does not demand apologies or force recognition. It simply knows when to leave. Walking away with dignity preserves your power because it protects what is most valuable, your self-respect, your peace, and your identity. Many people stay far longer than they should, not because the situation is healthy, but because leaving feels like failure. We are taught that endurance equals strength and that walking away means giving up. But there is a profound difference between perseverance and self-abandonment. Dignity knows the difference. It recognizes when effort has turned into erosion and when loyalty has become self-neglect. Walking away with dignity does not happen in anger. It happens in clarity. It is the moment you realize that explaining yourself again will not change anything. That waiting longer will not bring respect, and that shrinking yourself will not create harmony. This realization is quiet, but decisive. It does not require dramatic exits or public statements. It requires courage. Dignified departure refuses to engage in chaos. There is no need to prove who is right or wrong. There is no need to expose, insult, or retaliate. Power is preserved when you refuse to lower yourself to behavior that contradicts who you are becoming. Silence becomes a statement. Distance becomes a boundary. When you walk away with dignity, you take responsibility for your well-being without blaming others for your decision. You do not rewrite history to justify leaving. You simply accept reality as it is. This acceptance is empowering because it frees you from the need for validation. Many people confuse power with control. True power is self-mastery. It is the ability to choose peace over ego, integrity over reaction, and long-term stability over short-term satisfaction. Walking away with dignity demonstrates this mastery. There is a temptation to leave loudly, to make sure your pain is understood, your sacrifice is acknowledged, and your side heard. But loud exits often keep you emotionally tied to what you are trying to leave. Dignified exits release you. They close doors gently but firmly. Walking away with dignity also protects your future. How you leave one situation sets the tone for the next. When you leave without bitterness, you carry less emotional residue forward. You enter new spaces whole, not hardened. Preserving dignity means you do not compromise your values. Even when you are hurt, you do not become what wounded you. You refuse to trade character for momentary relief. This restraint is not weakness, it is refinement. There is power in letting actions speak for themselves. Distance reveals truth more effectively than confrontation ever could. Those who reflect will understand what was lost. Those who do not were never meant to understand. Either way, your peace remains intact. Walking away with dignity also teaches you self-trust. Each time you honor your boundaries, you reinforce your worth. You learn that you can survive disappointment without losing yourself. You learn that endings do not diminish you, they define you. There will be moments when walking away feels lonely. Dignity does not promise comfort, promises alignment. Choosing yourself may cost familiarity, approval, or attachment, but it will never cost your integrity. Power preserved through dignity is quiet but enduring. It is not dependent on others' recognition. It comes from knowing you handled a difficult situation without betraying yourself. That knowledge strengthens you. Walking away with dignity creates space for better connections. When you refuse to stay where you are undervalued, you open doors to environments that honor who you are becoming. Dignity clears the path forward. Not everyone will understand why you left. Some will rewrite the narrative to protect their ego. You do not need to correct them. Preserving your power means letting go of the need to be understood. In the end, walking away with dignity is an act of self-respect. It says, I choose myself without bitterness. It says, I value peace over pride. It says, I trust that leaving quietly is sometimes the strongest move. There is a moment in every woman's life when she stops negotiating with mediocrity, excuses, and disregard. It is the moment she chooses herself, her dignity, her boundaries, and her self-worth above all else. When a woman chooses self-worth, regret follows for those who underestimated her. This is not a threat. It is a natural consequence. It is the inevitable response of a world that tried to undervalue her brilliance, minimize her contributions, or ignore her power. Choosing self-worth is an act of reclamation. It is saying, I will no longer shrink to make you comfortable. I will no longer apologize for my presence. I will no longer bend my boundaries to meet your expectations. When she draws this line, she does not do it lightly. It is a declaration born of experience, pain, and reflection. She has endured neglect, disrespect, and misunderstanding long enough to know the cost of giving away her energy freely. Now, she chooses herself, and the impact is undeniable. People who underestimated her had grown accustomed to access without accountability. They assumed patience meant passivity. They believed loyalty equaled submission. They thought tolerance could be exploited indefinitely. When a woman recognizes her value, she stops tolerating behaviors that once passed unnoticed. She stops bending for comfort she does not receive in return. She stops making herself small to fit someone else's comfort zone. Self-worth manifests in choices. She chooses silence over explanation when explanations have no impact. She chooses distance over chaos when presence only invites disrespect. She chooses clarity over confusion, alignment over attachment, and peace over drama. Each of these choices is a reflection of her understanding that her energy is sacred, and those who do not honor it do not deserve it. Regret follows not because she seeks revenge, but because absence has a way of illuminating truth. When she stops chasing approval, people are left with their decisions exposed. They feel the emptiness of her absence, the silence of her withdrawal, and the weight of what they failed to nurture. The consequences of underestimating someone's value rarely appear immediately. They reveal themselves over time. Reality becomes undeniable. Choosing self-worth also rewrites dynamics. The woman who once accommodated manipulation, tolerated inconsistency, excused dismissiveness no longer does so. She sets boundaries firmly, consistently, and without apology. Those who had previously relied on her patience are shocked to find it finite. They discover, sometimes too late, they mistook generosity for weakness and patience for limitless access. Self-worth is not loud. It is quiet, deliberate, and powerful. It shows up in the way she walks away from situations that no longer serve her, in the way she protects her mental and emotional energy, in the way she refuses to apologize for prioritizing herself. Those who underestimated her will watch as she flourishes in spaces they cannot control. Their regret is born from observation. They see growth, confidence, and success that they failed to encourage. There is also a transformative element in her self-worth. Choosing herself often means investing in personal growth, emotional health, and clarity of purpose. She aligns with opportunities and people who respect her rather than clinging to relationships or situations that deplete her. This realignment highlights her strength and independence. Those who doubted her are confronted by the reality of what they overlooked her resilience, intelligence, and determination. When a woman chooses self-worth, she also redefines her narrative. She no longer allows her story to be rewritten by others' opinions, misunderstandings, or judgments. Her choices become statements of power. Boundaries become non-negotiable laws of respect. Her absence becomes evidence of her value. The regret that follows is not manufactured. It is the natural consequence of the clarity and strength she embodies. Self-worth also teaches others accountability. People begin to recognize that actions have consequences. Disrespect, neglect, or manipulation are no longer invisible. They are met with discernment, distance, and boundaries. Those who underestimated her must confront their behavior not through confrontation, but through reflection. Empowerment becomes a mirror they cannot ignore. Choosing self-worth is also about refusing to apologize for growth. She grows, evolves, and elevates herself. In doing so, she leaves behind what no longer aligns with her vision and peace. The regret of those who underestimated her is intensified by the contrast. They remain bound by old patterns while she moves forward unshaken, whole, and self-assured. This power of self-worth is quiet but undeniable. It does not seek validation from those who failed to recognize her. It does not explain itself unnecessarily. It acts, it protects, it preserves, and through action, it leaves a mark on everyone who once doubted, overlooked, dismissed her. Ultimately, when a woman chooses self-worth, she models strength. She demonstrates that value is not granted by approval, claimed through respect for oneself. She proves that personal power is not dependent on recognition, but rooted in self-awareness. And in claiming this power, she teaches a profound lesson. Those who underestimated her will always feel the weight of what they lost. Not because she sought to punish, because her life became a living testament to the worth they failed to honor. Self-worth is the quiet revolution of her life. It changes relationships, dynamics, and expectations. It forces reflection and regret for those who failed to see her value. It honors her journey, her strength, and her purpose. When she chooses herself, she becomes unstoppable, and those who underestimated her, they are left to reckon with the reality that brilliance, strength, dignity cannot be ignored forever. Her choice is simple: respect yourself, protect your energy, honor your boundaries, and refuse to settle for anything less than what you deserve. In that choice lies power, and in that power lies the inevitability of regret for those who ever underestimated her.